Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. I want to welcome back to the show Keith Hunter. Keith decodes ancient mythological stories to reveal the advanced scientific and spiritual knowledge behind them, as well as the placement and function of megalithic monuments, the secret physics underlying nuclear weapons, planetary alignments and earthquakes, and ancient calendar systems which target transition points separating world-age cycles. Keith, welcome back. How you doing today?
It's good to be here. Not too bad.
Very good. And we've got a lot to talk about again. Last presentation was fascinating. You showed us how planetary alignments can affect major cataclysms and even major events. Go ahead and tell us a brief overview about what you're going to be talking about today, and then just go ahead and jump into it.
Right. Today is going to be a follow-up presentation to the last one. In the last one, what I showed you were that there appear to have been, in the past, certain very specific conjunction patterns, especially like four-body planetary alignments tied into certain special directions in the sky, like the Pleiades star group, targeting that, and that they appeared to have been tied into geophysical disruption, either major regional or global. And these are tied into some of the stories which are some of the most important, especially like biblical stories like Noah's flood, the Exodus alignment, the destruction of Sennacherib's army, or even Crucifixion date. And I showed you that when these alignments take place, the ancients appear to have had calendar systems which they were actively using to target the precise dates of these alignments, either centuries or millennia in advance. And I revealed something about the way in which the physics worked, and that when the planets go into these special alignments, there's a kind of resonant agitation to the solar system. The planets start to shake, and we have extreme seismic activity. We also have things like the sun's light waves starting to be affected in terms of the energy output, also returning back to themselves, cancelling out, which leads to days of darkness. And also that the planets in these alignments, most notably Venus and Mercury, can develop cometary properties, develop cometary tails which can extend out into space, and the Earth may even go through them and get caught up in either a subtle debris field and also hit by major fragments of material blasted off from the comets. So I looked at those kinds of physics aspects to it. What I'm going to do in this presentation is continue on, but I'm going to have a major focus here upon the Gospels of the Bible. These are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the main stories concerning the life of Jesus. Because what Jesus does in his time is he actually encodes in his own life story certain special calendar adjustments. And this is why when you look at the parables, for example, you know, we've got like, he's feeding 4,000 people, he's feeding 5,000 people, you know, he's treating somebody who's ill, or a young girl, she's been ill for 12 years, she's about to die. There's another woman, she's been ill for 12 years as well, you know, things like that. Or the stories about, weights of measures, like, you know, in terms of numbers like 190 and 30, gallons of, in terms of the jars at the wedding of Cana when he turns water to wine, there's 6 jars and they can either hold 20 or 30 gallons. You've got all these stories with all these numbers thrown in. And what these numbers actually do is they basically target certain critical dates in history during the life of Jesus himself, okay? They target these certain special dates, and these are the starting point dates when you set in motion calendars, either based upon a 360-day ideal year, or one of the most important that Jesus talks about is a cycle of 3,200 days. And so when you set these in motion, you target future dates of disaster, dates which some of them have already happened. Some of them happened in the 6th century AD, you know, about 600 years or so after Jesus was born, or 500 years or so. Others happened in the late Middle Ages, around about the 14th century. Jesus also appears to have targeted even an event in the 16th century. And then there are some future days of disaster that appear to be encoded. And I'm going to get into some of those, because a lot of people wonder whether we are living in the so-called end times, as they put it. Well, what does that mean, really? Well, to me, it means that if we were living in the end times, that would imply that within our lifetime, within the lifespan of, say, a human being, say, I don't know, 70 years or whatever as an average, it would mean that within this kind of time frame, we could suffer one of these very significant planetary alignments, which could cause a lot of global devastation. That's what it means to me. And far from what you might have read in a lot of places where people talk about these events occurring every several thousand years, this is not true. They actually occur just every few hundred years, okay? So I'm going to start talking about the last time that we had one, and we do appear to be kind of due for one in terms of a lot of averages, if you want to put it that way. If we didn't get a significant disaster within the next 100 years, I personally would be very surprised. But we could get one in the next 50 years for all I know, you know. And I'm going to present to you a couple of possible, very close at hand alignment patterns, which appear to be targeted by Jesus in the Gospels, which appear to be of the same character as the ones I discussed in the previous presentation, and also appear to have some kind of mathematical calendar tie-in to the cycles of the ancients. In addition to this, though, I'm going to end by looking at the prophecies that appear to be associated with some of these cycles Jesus talks about, which are not geophysical in nature, but geopolitical, okay? I'm going to start talking about how these mathematical cycles tie into the birthdays of significant people apparently alive today, and also tie into the creation of nation states. So I'm going to end with that. So it's going to get into some biblical prophecy, you might say. But I'm going to begin the presentation then and do a screen share here.
Very good. We are ready. Very excited for this.
So can you see on screen then we have a slide here then of two alignments that I showed you.
23rd of March, 687 BC.
Yep. One of them is the 23rd of March, as you say, 687 BC. And that one is an alignment of Jupiter, Sun, Ceres, Jupiter, Venus, Mars. And that's associated, as I showed previously, with the destruction of the army of Sennacherib, a real geophysical event. The other one is Crucifixion Day, 3rd of April, 33 AD. And this is associated again with other exotic phenomena like seismic activity, like the sun going dark, all reported on the day. And you can see that the patterns here, they're the same kinds of alignments, it's just that the order of the bodies involved is reversed. In the case of the Crucifixion Day, it's Jupiter, Ceres, Sun, rather than Jupiter, Sun, Ceres, and it's Jupiter, Mars, Venus, rather than Jupiter, Venus, Mars. But you get the same kinds of patterns. Similar patterns of this type can be still energetically significant. So what I showed you here in the previous presentation was we have confirmation of the 687 BC date, as you can see here. This is from Velikovsky's work in Worlds in Collision. He looked at Chinese records, you know, and he found that Chinese records recorded this precise date, Sin Mao, 23rd of March, 687 BC, and they were talking about all these disasters, you know, in the heavens, the planet shaking, appearing to go out of orbit, and also what appeared to be a significant sized star falling from the sky, that kind of thing. So we have the actual secular records of this one. We then have the testimony from people who were right there at Crucifixion Day. In this case, the account here of the great darkness and earthquake at the Saviour's Passion. Again, end of age alignment. So these are two here that I've just discussed. Now what you'll find then is the stories of Jesus, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, they are very much anchored on one of the most important days associated with Jesus, closely tied into the Crucifixion Day. and that is Resurrection Day. And this is like the main anchor point from which we can solve a lot of the parables. And so I'm going to get into the Gospels then, okay? And I'm going to get into some hardcore controversy here. If you're a Christian, you're going to see some very interesting information presented here. But we're going to get into things like, when was Jesus born? When did Jesus get baptized? Okay, we're going to get into things like that. And we're going to get into also, when was John the Baptist born? When was he baptized? And we're going to also clear up some controversies that other people have noted, okay? We can know the exact dates of these events because they are encoded in the Bible if you look carefully and you discern it. So let's begin then by looking at a significant event here. This is called Annunciation, okay? This is basically the day when the angel Gabriel goes to visit Mary and tells Mary, you're going to have a child. That's Jesus, and he's going to be really great in the eyes of God, that kind of thing, okay? So that event then is associated with a certain tradition. But when was this event? How do we determine it? Well, it's quite simple. Here we've got Crucifixion Day, 3rd of April, 33 AD, okay? So if we go forwards 3 days, this is Resurrection Day. Jesus rises from the dead after 3 days. 6th of April, 33 AD. This is the main anchor point, okay? In order to target Annunciation Day, we go back in time a precise number of 360-day cycles. In this case, 33. 33 of these ideal years, 360 days, 11,880 days. If we go back, we get to the 26th of September, 1 BC. This is Annunciation Day, okay? Now, this presents the first controversy, because let's have a look. If we have this as the first controversy day, then it's against a certain Christian tradition. But what really confirms this is something from the Gospel of Luke, okay? Right? There's something about John the Baptist which is anchored on Annunciation Day for Mary, and this is to do with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a relative of Mary, as depicted in the Gospel of Luke. And what we find is this. When the angel Gabriel goes to visit Mary to say, you're going to have a child, Jesus, the angel Gabriel says, I've been to see your relative Elizabeth already, and I've told her she's going to have a child, which is John the Baptist. And what the angel Gabriel says is, right now as I'm talking to you, your relative Elizabeth is 6 months pregnant, okay? As it says here, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, okay? This is when the angel Gabriel goes to visit Mary. So we know Elizabeth then is 6 months pregnant with John the Baptist when the angel Gabriel tells Mary that she's going to have Jesus, okay? So here we are then. If this is the Annunciation Day, and this is the 26th of September, okay? You can't see screen there. Did I way to move this box? Oh, I can move it here, sorry. Yeah. 1st of BC, yeah. 26th September, 1 BC. So this is Annunciation Day, okay? With regards to Mary. So, the angel Gabriel at this moment in time says that John the Baptist is 6 months pregnant. These are ideal months of 30 days. So if we go back 180 days, that's 6 months. 30 times 6 is 180 days. We will get to his conception day. But if we want to know when is John the Baptist born, we go forwards 3 months from this date, which is exactly 90 days. And if we do that, we get this. The 25th of December, 1 BC. This is the birthday of John the Baptist. Now I know what you're thinking. 25th of December? That's like Christmas, isn't it? That's like when Jesus was born. No. It's actually when John the Baptist was born. Jesus was not born on the 25th of December. John the Baptist was. Now that's the first point of controversy. Now, here's the thing, though. From this day, we can go back 270 days. We get the conception day of John the Baptist, because it's 9 months of pregnancy. Okay? The clever author of the Gospel of Luke does not want us to go back 270 days, though, from this day right here. What they want us to do is to go back 270 days with a slight adjustment. And this is from Luke 1. It states here, when Elizabeth has just had her baby, okay, John the Baptist, on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child. Okay? And then they ended up calling him John. What the author of the Gospel of Luke wants us to do is to go back 270 days from circumcision day. So we have to go forwards 8 days, then go back 270 days. And if we do that, we arrive here, firstly, plus 8 days forwards, January, 2nd of January, 1 AD. Okay, it's just been born, 25th of December, 8 days forwards, there's when he's circumcised, and then we go back 270 days. And then we get to the 7th of April, 1 BC, under the Julian calendar. Now, for those people who know their Christian traditions, immediately you'll have said, 7th of April, I know what that date's about. What is that date about? Here's the controversy. Annunciation again. Now, when we think of Annunciation, we tend to think of Mary being visited by the angel Gabriel, okay? And she's told she's going to have Jesus. But the angel Gabriel also visits Elizabeth to say she's going to have John the Baptist, okay? The tradition, though, that we have associated with Gabriel visiting Mary is that it occurs on April the 7th. If you look at this passage here, at the bottom in red it says, in those churches using the old-style Julian calendar, March the 25th, which is called the Feast of Annunciation, is reckoned to fall on April the 7th. Okay? April the 7th is the target date that we've just dropped on here, but it's associated with John the Baptist, okay? In other words, this Annunciation date, tradition of the 7th of April being linked into Annunciation with regards to Mary and Jesus, it's not. Once again, it's actually associated with John the Baptist and his mother Elizabeth, okay? So we've got two dates here that we think are associated with Jesus. 25th of December, we think that's when Jesus was born. No, it was when John the Baptist was born. And then we think that April the 7th, under the Julian calendar, is Annunciation for Mary. No, it's Annunciation with regards to Elizabeth and John the Baptist. Okay? But there's something else important to note about what's going on the 7th of April. Why are we even targeting this date? If we look at what's going off in the sky here, we will find that the moon is a full moon on the 7th of April, 1 BC. Okay, this is 8 days after John the Baptist is conceived. Okay, so the angel Gabriel goes to visit Elizabeth, says, you're going to have John the Baptist. She's only conceived 8 days ago, so she wouldn't really know, if you know what I'm saying. But this is what's going on in the full moon. So if we do what we did in the previous presentation, we look to the center of the moon, we position ourselves at the center of the moon, and then look towards the earth and the sun, here's what we see. You can see what I've done here. I've just refined it. We've just gone 12 minutes from a precise 12 noon day. That's all I've done. And this gives us the optimum alignment, because we're at the center of the moon, there's the earth, there's the sun, and there's going to be a 90-degree angle here connecting them. So this is the optimum full moon. And you can see we've got the Lamb of God, Aries constellation, as I noted in the previous presentation. And at this moment in time, when we have the optimum full moon, we've got one of these special equidistant relations between the angular separation of the center of the Earth to two key stars in the Aries constellation. And these essentially sweep out, you know, with significance to the body of the Lamb of God, okay? With the body of the Lamb of God. If we just look here, this is Crucifixion associated with Jesus, when we've got the full moon optimum here, which is also a lunar eclipse. We have got an equidistant relationship to the two stars associated with the head of the Lamb. So this is how John the Baptist and Jesus differ, okay? Very interesting. But let's go back here then. This is the Annunciation day for Mary, and it's the 26th of September. It is not the 7th of April. 7th of April is Elizabeth. So from here then, we've just dealt with how John the Baptist, or when he was conceived and when he was born. Now what about Jesus? When was Jesus conceived and when was he born? Well, conception day, if we are here, to find conception day, all we need to do is go forwards 3 months. And if we do that, we go forwards to this date. Once again, it's the 25th of December. You see, the very day that John the Baptist is born is the very day that Jesus is conceived. And this would appear to be where the confusion comes in, because we think about Jesus, quote, entering the world, on the 25th of December. Well, that's a pretty vague statement. You might unwittingly assume, oh, that must imply he was born there. He was born on that date. No, entering the world is in conception. Okay? He's not born on the 25th. He's conceived there. What this also means then is that if we do want to know when he's born, and it's 9 months, 270 days exactly, this is when Jesus was actually born, on the 21st of September, 1 AD. Okay? Now, we need confirmation of this, and we have it brilliantly. What do we all know about Jesus being born? What does everybody know about the birth of Jesus? He was born of a virgin. Now, it's not this immaculate conception stuff. No. Let's have a look at the virgin. This is the virgin. Virgo, the constellation Virgo, the virgin, aka the maiden. And here you can see the nice artistic depiction of the maiden. And what you have here are all the stars of the constellation, okay? Now I want to draw your attention to the most important star of all of them, which is Spica, this one here, Alpha Virginis, the prime or first star of the entire constellation. It's the brightest star in Virgo, okay? Brightest star, the most significant in the entire constellation. So, let's have a look. If we are here, okay, 21st of September, and this is when Jesus is born, we might want to notice something else here. It turns out we have a full moon right on this day, So we might want to do what we did before. Let's position ourselves at the center of the moon and look to the sun. Here you can see, there's the Earth. I've had to put a blue outline around it because it's in silhouette. And there's the sun. And we're on the 21st of September, 12 noon exactly, in a whole number Julian day. But you can see that we are not on the optimum full moon. We need the line connecting up the sun to the Earth to be at 90 degrees to the Earth's orbital plane, which is this green line. So we need to adjust the time just slightly. And if we do that, just a few hours, we go backwards in time, just 2 hours and 42 minutes, that's what we're looking at. The optimum alignment from the center of the moon to the Earth to the sun, when you've got a 90-degree line, 90 degrees separating the line connecting two bodies to the ecliptic, it pierces perfectly through Spica, the brightest star of the Virgo constellation. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the virgin birth. This is the configuration. It's not an immaculate conception thing. It's this pattern. It's astrology, okay? So this is when Jesus was born. Now, his life is very much harmonious then to this 360-day cycle tied into Resurrection Day and Annunciation. See, it's 360 days backwards in time to Annunciation Day from here, 21st of September, 1 AD. And if we go forwards 32 years, 32 cycles of 360 days, we get to Resurrection Day. So Jesus is harmonized like that. And his life is 270 days offset from that of John the Baptist. What about the baptism of Jesus? When did that occur? Well, here we have a tradition again based in the Julian calendar. You can ask Christians, when was Jesus baptized? And they will all say to you, well, it's the 6th of January under the Julian calendar. Okay. But which year? Which year? This tradition here is absolutely correct. Jesus was baptized on the 6th of January under the Julian calendar. When exactly? Well, here's some very clever mathematics. There's the birth of Jesus then, 21st of September 1 AD. How many days from the birth to the baptism of Jesus? And the answer is 7,777 days. If you go forward this number of days here, bang, you're on the 6th of January, 23 AD. That's baptism day, right there, okay? That's baptism day. Now, here's where things get very interesting. We're going to firstly look at John the Baptist, okay? This is where we start to get into some very interesting connections here. So let's just say we minus 8 days from this, okay? And what we're actually doing here, you know how John the Baptist, when he was born, we went forwards 8 days before we went back 270 days because it was that circumcision day. Well, here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually now target the precise day when John the Baptist dies. And it's tied into the baptism day because John the Baptist is the guy that baptizes Jesus, right? So we know they meet up on the 6th of January for baptism. In order to target the death of John the Baptist, we engage in a bit of clever mathematics here. And this is very ingenious. The first thing is to go back 8 days, which takes us to the 29th of September, 22 AD, okay? What do we do then next? We need to go forwards a special number of days. How many days? Is the genius bit. We go forwards precisely 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 days. This is why there's 4 sevens in terms of birth of Jesus to baptism. You've got 4 sevens as a numeric value, 7,777 days. But when you're calculating the day when John the Baptist died, okay, what do? You first do that correction for the circumcision, 8 days. It's like you take it back. You've already added it on previously, you now take it back. And then you go forwards 2,401 days, which is 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 days. And if you do that, you end up on this day here, the 26th of July, which is 29 AD, the death of John the Baptist. Okay? Okay. Now, same thing applies here. This is the lifespan of the John the Baptist then. If that's when he died, here's the interesting bit. How old was he? Exactly 29 years old. Because if we go back 29 cycles of 360 days, bang, we get to the 25th of December, 1 BC. Okay? He died on exactly his 29th birthday. Now, again, what do we all know about John the Baptist? How did he die? He was beheaded. So if we look at his date of death, look down at the solar system, we're going to see something very interesting. Wouldn't you just know it? A very nice 4-body alignment. Very, very accurate. Jupiter, Earth, Venus, and Ceres. Now, if we position ourselves at the center of Jupiter and look all the way down the line, here's what we see. With a slight optimization, less than 24-hour shift, we get all the bodies aligned because we're the center of Jupiter, so we've got Ceres, Earth, and Venus all lined up at an optimum. This is less than 1 day's adjustment, okay? Less than 24 hours. And you can see how they cut through 2 stars, Zanaya and Zavijava. And what are those stars? They're the stars that cover the head of Virgo. Virgo the Virgin. This is the beheading of John the Baptist. Okay? it's talking about this particular configuration here of this alignment cutting through the head of Virgo, okay? Now, here's where things get very interesting. Targeting world age ending alignments from the time of Jesus. I've just shown you several dates here of interest, which are all determined from the Gospels of Jesus. Well, these dates, with further adjustments, just slight adjustments here and there, they allow us to target certain precise dates in the time of Jesus when you set in motion certain calendar cycles to target future end-of-age alignments, centuries or even millennia in advance. And I'm going to be dealing with some of these right now. So, they tend to be based mostly on a 3200-day cycle, which is encoded in the Bible, but it's a bit of a subtle proof, and I'm not going to go into it. You know, I'm just going to tell you that it's one of the most important, along with the 360-day cycle. So, let's have a look here then. We're back at the birth of Jesus. Okay? We know when he was born, 21st of September. He was baptized 7,777 days later, 6th of January. We get to the death of John the Baptist here by firstly subtracting 8 days from baptism day and then going forward this special number, 7 multiplied by itself 4 times, okay? 2,401 days. And this gets you to the death of John the Baptist, okay? Well, let's just have a look at something else here. If we're on at the death of John the Baptist then, we're now going to target an alignment which is associated with this Revelation 12 prophecy. This is in the book of Revelation, the Bible. This is the death of John the Baptist. If we're going to set in motion a calendar based upon 3,200 days to target the Revelation disaster, you need to make a subtle adjustment. And the answer is 770 days. That's our special adjustment that we count that takes us to the 4th of September 31 AD. And if we do that, we then start to count cycles of 3,200 days. And how many do we count? 150. 150 times 3,200 days takes us all the way 480,000 days into the future, landing on the 4th of November 1345 AD. Now, this is an alignment day that I discussed in the previous presentation. Okay, this was associated with massive death due to the Black Death. This is when we got caught up in a cometary stream. So let me just refresh your memory and look down the solar system. We will see the destructive configuration. It's this one here. The core part of it is the alignment of Mars, Venus, the Sun, and Mercury towards the galactic center, whilst simultaneously we have the Sun, the Earth, and the Pleiades star group aligned. But you'll also notice I've added in an additional alignment, Jupiter, Venus, and Ceres, which also appears present at the same time. So this is when we had a great deal of destruction strike the Earth here. And we'll look at the alignments from down the line. This is from the center of the Sun. There's the Earth and the Pleiades aligned, and you can see Mars and Venus very close by. And if we switch position to the center of Mars, this is when we see the galactic alignment from this perspective. And you can see Venus and Mercury just slightly offset from the Sun. But where is the Sun located? Right between Z Serpentis and Shola. Now, it says Serpens Cauda constellation. Serpens Cauda is serpent's tail. And Scorpius, the sting of the scorpion, right, the actual star that is the sting is Shola, and Scorpius is the scorpion. And you can see the Sun is right next to Ophiuchus, the foot of Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. Okay, in the Bible, there's a particular book, or was it the book of Luke, and the Gospel of Luke. I think it's 9 and 10, and Jesus describes this special pattern, and he says he's going to send out 72 messengers. To tell people he's coming to town and get ready, the kingdom of heaven is near. And he says to these 72 messengers, I give you the authority and the power to tread on scorpions and serpents. Nothing will hurt you. Your names are written in heaven. That's what he says exactly. And he's talking about Venus-Mars conjunctions, because there are 72 Venus-Mars conjunctions which return you to the same point in the sky, okay? So this is why there's 72 messengers. And he's talking about how the alignment takes place right here next to the foot of Ophiuchus, treading on the sting of the scorpion, below the ecliptic, and the serpent's tail above it. So this is one of the destructive alignments that Jesus talks about, and he gets there from the death of John the Baptist with a special 770-day movement forwards. Then you start counting cycles of 3,200 days. Okay? If you count the precise number 150, you drop right on this date. This is an actual targeted forecast of this destructive alignment. And I showed you we had reports from the actual time itself. This is from the Cosmic Winter, Victor Clube and Bill Napier, 1990. We actually have records of people in 1345 literally saying they looked up in the sky, Cathay to Persia. Cathay is China, Persia is Iran, modern day names for them. There rained a vast rain of fire, falling in flakes like snow, and it burnt up mountains and plains, and whosoever beheld this died within the space of half a day. It's a toxic atmosphere. The bubonic plague was a space-based pathogen brought to us because of the pollution of the atmosphere from the Earth being caught in a cometary stream. Okay, so this is one of the disasters that Jesus targets about 1,300 years from his own lifetime. Let's have a look at another. This is taken from a book that was actually produced in the mid-16th century called the Book of Miracles, okay? And it's basically somebody who's just compiling a list of all these interesting comets and the things they've seen in the sky. And so we have a reference in this Book of Miracles from the mid-16th century. And it says, in 1300 AD, a terrible comet appeared in the sky. And in this year, on St. Andrew's Day, an earthquake shook the ground so that many buildings collapsed. Well, although it's not stated straight out there, we can actually date this very precisely. This was a disaster alignment. This was no ordinary comet. This would appear to have been a planet ignited to develop cometary properties, all on a specific day when a special alignment took place. And what is the day? St. Andrew's Day. Let's have a look. Wikipedia. We know St. Andrew's Day is the 30th of November. You can see it here and here. So if we know the year's 1300 and we know the calendar date is 30th of November, let's have a look in the solar system. Top-down view, and what do we get? A four-body alignment of Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, and Ceres. But there's more. Let's have a look down the line of the actual four-body alignment. From the viewpoint of Ceres, here it is. And look at this, our old buddy, the Pleiades star group, okay? Exodus alignment was a four-body alignment, dead on with the Pleiades group right here, okay? We had the destruction of the army of Sennacherib, also Pleiades alignment. Noah's flood, four-body alignment with the Pleiades. So right here, we just happen to have on the 30th of November, 1300 AD, St. Andrew's Day, talk of a massive comet in the sky, and the ground shakes, earthquake activity. It's all tied into a resonant agitation of the solar system triggered by this four-body alignment in this dangerous part of the sky, aligned with the Pleiades. And the comet is undoubtedly Ceres itself, flaring up to develop cometary properties, okay? Let's have a look at this from the other side. This is from Jupiter. You can see we're near the pincers of the scorpion, okay? The 687 BC alignment is also encoded in Greek mythology of the death of Phaethon, the child of the sun. And in that story, he looks across to the sun and he's tormented by the pincers of the scorpion. You see, because the alignment itself in 687 BC is an alignment involving Ceres, the Sun, and Jupiter with the Pleiades, okay, which is exactly what this kind of alignment is doing here. It's got many of the elements here, which is what makes it an end-of-age alignment, okay? So, let's go to the mathematics. we're on the death of John the Baptist and we want to target this particular date, how do we do it? Well, we firstly have a special adjustment. We just go forwards 360 days. And this goes to what would be John the Baptist's 30th birthday, okay? Remember, he dies obviously at 29. But if we were to go forwards 360 days, we get to the 21st of July 30 AD. This is the date when we set in motion our calendar system to now target the 1300 AD alignment. We count this time 145 cycles of 3200 days, which is 464,000 days. And if we do that from 360 days after the John the Baptist dies, we target the alignment with perfection, 30th November 1300 AD. Okay? So there are two alignments I've just shown you here, which appear to be encoded in the Bible. So Jesus, everybody talks about Jesus talking about the end times. He's actually giving us multiple alignments. He's not just talking about one. He's giving us multiple alignments, okay, that go off thousands of years into the future. He's encoding them in all the different stories of the Bible, okay? There are many. So let's have a look at the next one. The Great Comet of 1556, okay? And again, this comet's usually associated with Charles V. So it states at the bottom here, the Great Comet of 1556 is called the Comet of Charles V. When the Emperor first caught sight of it, he stood aghast and exclaimed, "By this dread sign my fates do summon me." Charles had long meditated about retiring from the world he had conquered and crushed. If you look at the description here, it says that the comet seemed to first appear around about February 1556, but it was not generally observed until the middle of the first week of March, so it really gets to some intensity here on March, okay? Now, here's where we might ask ourselves, well, we need a precise date here if we're going to evaluate this. Fortunately, we have one. Just like with that reference from the Book of Miracles, we had this year 1300 AD, and it was stated there was a great comet in the sky. When was it? Well, he gave us this reference to St. Andrew's Day, which is a precise day in the calendar, okay? That being the 30th November. Well, here we've got a comet in the sky. We've got some kind of reference of about March, early March, when it seems to be really at its intense point. But when exactly? Well, the same brilliant thing occurs here. We have a record of a massive earthquake on a certain day, very prominent, and we have a wood cutting with the earthquake and actually talking about the comet, and this is it here. This is a German woodcut depicting an earthquake that occurred 2 hours before dawn on the 10th of March, 1556 AD. It occurred in Istanbul, Turkey. Modern-day Istanbul is Constantinople at the time. In Turkey, that was heralded by a comet. The earthquake caused some deaths and is believed to have been about 6.75. Quite a significant earthquake there. So we've got reports of this earthquake on a very precise day, and we've got the comet there. So the day of interest is the 10th of March. So let's have a look at the 10th of March. A top-down view reveals the following amazing pattern here. We've got Saturn, Ceres, and the Sun. We've got Ceres, Mars, that's Mercury there, and that's the Earth. And what you actually tend to have here is over the next 3 days, not just the 10th, but 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, you have a series of Earth alignments all reaching slight optimums. But the 10th of March here is the most optimum with respect to Saturn, Ceres, and the Sun, and Ceres, Mars, and the Earth. Mercury, it just needs a couple, a day or two to get into an optimum with a four-body alignment. So it's all just a bit subtle there. But this is the date we've got, the 10th of March, and would appear to be correct because this is the day of the earthquake. So we know the energy transfer was bang, right there at its optimum on this day. So let's evaluate this day. And here's where more cleverness comes in. This again is just telling you what we had before, okay? how we got to the death of John the Baptist from the birth of Jesus. Remember, we went forward 7,777 days to get to baptism. We then subtracted 8 days, and then we went forwards 2,401 days. Well, if we just get rid of that last step there, and we are just right here, 8 days backwards from baptism day, this is the day when you set in motion the calendar system to target the 1556 comet. Again, you use a 3,200-day cycle. You count precisely, very elegantly, 175 cycles of 3,200 days, which is exactly 560,000 days. So if we're on the 29th of December, 22 AD, and we go forwards 560,000 days, what day do we drop on with absolute perfection? The 10th of March, 1556, the precise day of the earthquake, okay? So you can see how high precision stuff this is. Jesus is basically using this constructed life story of his, he's like, the real Jesus is not a public figure. He's a private man that's the mastermind behind the stories. He's created a kind of a fake construct of a public life with all these numbers in these stories to encode his prophecies, okay, about future disasters. So this is what he's done here then. He's basically using all these days associated with his own life with little adjustments here and there to target dates in his own life when we have these future alignments, okay? So I've just dealt with a few here. There's a lot more I could show you, but I'm just dealing with some of the more prominent ones, okay? But what I'm going to do now is get to the really interesting stuff. Near-term future alignments, okay? Now, I've just shown you, okay, some alignments that have already occurred. There would also appear to be indications, mathematically, if you look at it, there would also appear to be alignments that Jesus is talking about, which may be within our lifetime, okay? So I've had a very careful look of all the planetary alignments going off at least 50 years into the future, and I've evaluated them to see if there are any really good contenders for being potential end-of-age alignments in our lifetime, which could result in an alignment pattern giving us geophysical disruption, okay? Similar to the ones I've given you, where we could have planets ignite as comets, where we could have massive seismic activity, sun possibly going dark, that kind of thing. Are there any alignment patterns in our very near future which have many of the elements of the ones I've evaluated and which have a certain special mathematical tie-in to the Gospels of Jesus? Okay? And the answer is yes, there are a few. I'm going to give you what I consider to be the two which are the most significant, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? So let's get into them. The first one is this one here. This, again, is a future pattern very close at hand for us right now, and it appears to be tied in strongly to the baptism day of Jesus. And it involves this 3,200 day cycle. But we don't start counting directly. We need an adjustment. 96 days. Now, I've shown you in the previous presentation, 96 days is used as an adjustment multiple times, It's used with respect to the Mayan calendar with a long count. They have a 96-day special count before they start counting the entire calendar itself, the long count calendar. 96 days is used when you're at the Exodus alignment. You count 96 days, then you start counting your 360-day calendar to target the alignment of disaster, which is the 747 BC one. So 96 days is a special initial adjustment before you start counting your main cycle. We've seen it many times, okay? So here's the thing then. If we're at the baptism of Jesus and we go back 96 days, we can start counting a special calendar system of 3,200 days. And in this case, we count precisely 230 cycles, which is 736,000 days. And if we go forwards in time then, precisely this number of days from 2nd of October, we hit upon this date right here, the 5th of November 2037 AD. So this is only about 18 years into the future, okay? It's only 18 years. So let's have a look what's going on in the solar system on this day. A top-down view reveals the following. We have two alignments occurring. One is a four-body alignment, Ceres, Mercury, Earth, and Mars here. And we also have Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury. And this is a very optimal four-body alignment here, very, very accurate. But there's something else. If we have a look down the line of this four-body alignment, what do we see? The Pleiades star group right here. From the center of Ceres, we can see here Mercury, Earth, and Mars right here. Just a degree, I think 1 degree or so from the Pleiades. This is the same region that we had for Noah's flood, Exodus, Sennacherib's army. You know, we're talking about major alignments occurring lined up with the Pleiades star group. So this one is a very accurate one here. So let's have a look from the other perspective. This is from the center of Mars. You can see how brilliantly they are lined up right on this day that we've targeted with precision. And this is the pincers of the scorpion bit. So this is just from the other perspective, okay? So this is a very interesting contender. Now you might ask yourself, how often do we have four-body alignments in the Pleiades, okay? The answer, if you have a look at it, it all depends on how accurate you are. If you're looking for very accurate ones, you might have to wait several decades, sometimes close to 100 years maybe. You know, they're not all too frequent. And I've put it here because it's the next up-and-coming one. It's a very accurate one as a four-body alignment. It also has this contributing alignment involving Jupiter, which makes it even more rare. And it also... it has this very elegant mathematical calendar tie-in to the baptism of Jesus. So overall, it's an interesting contender, a possibility that we could have a geophysical event occur on this day. It's definitely a possibility, but it is ultimately quite speculative, okay? Now let's have a look at the next one. This one is actually a drop-off, not directly from the parables of Jesus as such. Although Jesus targets, as I showed you, he targets this alignment himself directly. We can use this alignment of the 4th of November, 1345, as the target point for setting in motion. You know, it's the anchor point for setting in motion another calendar system. Again, one based upon 3,200 days. Now, we need an adjustment. 216 days. 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. And if you go backwards 216 days, and then you set in motion a 3,200 day calendar system, and you count 80 cycles, very nice number, you count precisely 256,000 days. So if you go forwards into the future then, we drop on this date here. This is the 6th of March, 2046 AD. And we also have a special alignment occurring right on this date here. This is it. It's a two separated alignments occurring at the same time. Jupiter, Sun, Mercury, and Ceres, and Jupiter, Venus, and Mars. Okay? And let's have a look down the line. You can see Virgo. From the center of Jupiter, Venus and Mars are aligned closely with the head star. I believe it's the Zavi Java, if I got that right. That's the head star of Virgo. And here you can see Ceres and Mercury aligned nicely. Again, Ceres, dwarf planet, well above the ecliptic. It's not along the same plane as the other planets, so it's a longitudinal alignment as such, yes. Why it looks very good from a top-down view, but that's why it's well above everything else. So this is the alignment from this viewpoint here then. So let's have a comparison just to show you. The 6th of March 2046 alignment I've just shown you right there is this one. And this is the destructive alignment of the 23rd of March, 687 BC. And what do you notice? Many of the elements are right there. It's Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and it's Jupiter, Sun, Ceres, and it's Jupiter, Sun, Ceres. This one includes Mercury also in 2046, which is kind of interesting because you know how I told you that the 687 BC alignment is also very close to Crucifixion Day. There's a little comparison here. If we switch to Crucifixion Day, on Crucifixion Day we have Jupiter, the Sun, and Mercury as well. Mercury is a part of the alignment with Ceres, okay? And here it's Jupiter, Sun, and there's Mercury, part of the alignment with Ceres here, the other side of the Sun also, rather than this side of it, you know, like here. But again, it's very interesting. So here that you've got another conjunction pattern, which is a match in many of its elements to destructive patterns that we've had previously. And it has a very elegant calendar tie-in to the 1345 alignment. So it's very interesting. But let's just change tack here a bit, completely. From alignments which are geophysical in nature to destruction, let's have a look at something that's geopolitical. Feeding the 4,000, okay? Now, this is a very interesting story. I think people are more familiar with feeding the 5,000 than the 4,000, but feeding the 4,000 is another great story. The 4,000 people who are fed represent 4,000 days. I'll just say that straight out, okay? It's a calendar adjustment. And we have here quite a few different numbers linked to the story. So there's 4,000 people apparently following Jesus around, but again, it's a construct, not real. And they've been with him for 3 days. And so, you know, Jesus asks, you know, they're all getting a bit hungry. Any bread, anybody, you know? How many loaves do you have, Jesus asks. 7, they replied, and a few small fish. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves and the fish, and when he had given thanks, he broke them and gave them to the disciples. And they in turn to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. Afterward, his disciples picked up 7 full baskets of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was 4,000, okay? So, 4,000 people have been with Jesus for 3 days, okay? And he's got 7 loaves of bread and feeds everybody once he's broken them up. And there are 7 baskets left over. 7 loaves, 7 baskets left over. We have to remember these numbers, okay? But let's have a look. Where is this story mapped in time? It's quite ingenious. Once again, let's have a look at the birth of Jesus. This is the birth of Jesus right to the death of John the Baptist. You know, I said to you, birth of Jesus is 7,777 days. And the reason why you had those 4 sevens is this big hint, because you're going to use 4 sevens to multiply together in order to target the 26th of July, right? This, after you've gone back this 8 days, you have to multiply 4 sevens to get to the death of John the Baptist. But there is a special variation on this little theme here. I want you to consider this. We know a lot of these corrections that we employ are multiples of 6. So I've shown you 216 days, which is 6 times 6 times 6. We've used that a few times, okay? And so if you've got an anchor point date and you're going to set in motion a calendar system and you don't start counting your units direct, you don't start counting units of 360 days or 3,200 days direct, you might need an adjustment. It could be a multiple of 6. In this case then, it turns out that if you multiply 6 by itself 5 times, you get to 7,776. And this is 1 day less than 7,777, obviously. This is the day before Jesus is baptized, okay? So let's have a look. We're on the 5th of January, day before Jesus is baptized. This now is a new special anchor point. We can use this precise date here to target another date of great significance with another special adjustment. We need to go back in time a certain special number of days to target this very special day. And how many days is it? 777 days. We love our sevens, don't we? Because it so happens that if we go backwards 777 days from the day before baptism, we land on the 19th of November 20 AD, which is a lunar eclipse, a blood moon. What are the odds of that? Okay, amazing. So let's just refine this a little bit. The optimum alignment for the lunar eclipse involves us just adjusting slightly. We're still on the 19th, but instead of it being 12 noon, it goes back 5 hours and 20 minutes to 6:40 universal time. So we've only made a slight adjustment, okay, of just 5 hours, 20 minutes back from 12 noon, but we're still in the 19th. So we're right on the optimum lunar eclipse. Let's have a look. From the perspective of the center of the Earth, there's the moon in red between the horns of Taurus, okay? Let's switch positions though. Let's go to the center of the moon and now look to the Earth, so we'll see the sun. Before we do that though, just before we do that, let's have a look at a top-down view of the solar system. Same exact time here. We've got the Earth, the Sun and Mars aligned, and we've also got the Earth, Mercury and Ceres just happen to be aligned. So we've got interesting planetary configurations going on at the same time as we've got this lunar eclipse, okay? So let's have a look then from center of the moon, looking down to the Earth, the Sun and Mars, and also Mercury and Ceres. This is what we see. There's the Sun. It's in silhouette. Just put a little ring around it. The Earth, there is the Earth in silhouette. I put a ring around it. The Sun, I've labeled it. You can't see it because it's the other side. It's totally blocked out. Mars as well, I've labeled it. You can't see it because it too is totally blocked out. Okay, it's that accurate. And you can also see from where we are, Mercury and Ceres. But look at where we are. Look at the area of the sky. It's the foot of Ophiuchus. It's the galactic alignment type part, you know. So this alignment involving this lunar eclipse here, okay, that involves Moon, Earth, Sun, and also Mars, is targeting the galactic alignment position, the same area of the sky as we had that disaster of 1345 AD, but it's right here. This is very interesting. So this here, guys, is in fact the starting point of the feeding of the 4000. What I mean by that is, if we are here on this particular date here, 19th of November 20 AD, okay, we've gone back 777 days to the lunar eclipse. If we go forwards in time precisely, if we start counting units of 3200 days, okay, we start counting units of 3200 days, this special calendar cycle unit, and we count precisely 220 such units, we go forwards into the future precisely 704,000 days. A very nice number if you just look at that sequence. Well, the first 4,000 days here are the feeding of the 4,000. That's what they represent, okay? So if we go forwards this precise number, we drop on a day in recent times in our past, which is of great geopolitical significance. What day do we drop on? If we go forward 704,000 days from this lunar eclipse here, we drop on this day, the 14th of May, 1948. And this is when the state of Israel was re-established, dead on this day, when Ben Gurion made the big announcement that it's now live, so to speak, okay? So the first 4,000 days of this, when completed, means you've got precisely 700,000 left to target the re-establishment of the state of Israel. This appears to be what Jesus is wanting us to look at. But let's have a look at something else, though. if we do in fact go forward those 4,000 days, we get to the 2nd of November 31 AD, okay? So from here, 700,000 days left to Israel being established. But here we are. Remember I said to you, how many loaves of bread did they start out with? 7. How many baskets left over? 7. What's 7 times 7? 49, okay? Well, what we're going to be doing here then, we've multiplied 7 by itself a few times before, okay? It's basically saying multiply 7 times 7, 49 days, and add that onto the end of the parable of the 4,000. And if we do, we target 21st of December 31 AD, as you can see here. Just so happens we have a special alignment going on here. Jupiter, Venus, and Mars. Another Jupiter, Venus, Mars conjunction. We see those quite frequently. They're all very significant. And we've also got simultaneously Ceres, Sun, and Venus. And so you can see how these additional little elements of the stories are built in to like reinforce their correct mapping in time. Okay. Now, this is why,
before you go any further, I do have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Now, these alignments, I can understand how they could possibly energetically cause cataclysms, but are they causing these events, or are they somehow just marking these events? What are your thoughts on that?
All the events, they're very real. The alignments actively, they tap into a certain physical mechanism natural to the solar system. It's like I discussed in the previous video, for example, we have gravity waves established by the planets and the sun, and all of the planets are held in orbit by the sun itself. So when these wave patterns interact with one another on these special alignments, that's what causes resonant disruption to occur. This is like a real physical process that scientists know about. They can do it in laboratories. So we have turbulence. We have the planets start to energetically, have turbulent, their orbits become turbulent. So they start physically shaking. And then we have, again, cancellation of the sun's light waves. If the sun's light waves themselves, as I pointed out in the previous presentation, they withdraw back into themselves, which is what scientists call destructive interference. You can talk about the light waves themselves literally phasing out of a certain spectrum, like cancelling out. So these are all very real effects that occur when certain special alignments occur. And what is encoded in these parables here is someone is telling you this advanced knowledge. They're basically saying, Jesus is saying, I know when we have these alignments, which are not just normal alignments. I know what kinds of alignments will trigger these very destructive effects. He's basically saying he knows what they are. He's encoding this esoteric knowledge in his own life story, kind of a construct, to give people forewarning about them. So, it's real. It's real physics. This is a mechanism of the solar system. If you just look at the orbits in general, normal astronomers, they just model the solar system as balls of, rocky balls flying through space in elliptical orbits. They just look at it as a pure motion-based system. They don't believe resonance exists in the solar system. They don't model it. They just don't model any of this stuff, okay? They don't take into account any of it. This is their ignorance, if you will. The ancients appear to have understood this mechanism of the solar system. They understood that resonance was a part of the solar system. And they obviously had this advanced knowledge of when these disruptions would occur. So I think scientists are kind of rediscovering this. And they've made all kinds of exotic discoveries at the quantum mechanics level, subatomic level. It's just that they haven't got that exotic stuff at that level and transferred it into the celestial macroscopic realm. But it's real physics. Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. I just wanted to get the audience a little refreshed on that. But yes, that was perfect. Thank you.
Well, I definitely recommend that they watch the first presentation first, because I went into all slides regarding these physical effects before to go through this one. But so this here then is a parable of 4,000, which is tied into targeting a geopolitical event. the rebirth of the state of Israel, okay? And he's using the same kind of 3,200-day cycle calendar, you know, but instead of targeting a geophysical event like disruption to the solar system, it's a geopolitical event. So Jesus is literally telling you he knows the future. Now, this is like a whole new level of stuff, this is like God-level stuff, pardon the pun, okay? So one of the things that you also find is that prominent people in history, also in terms of their births, in terms of their deaths, they also appear to be tied in to this mathematical system, you know, which is also tied into these destructive alignments. And so we're going to get into a bit of modern day prophecy here, okay? Because a lot of people have looked at guys on the world stage right now and wondered if there's some kind of divine destiny to them. And so, yeah, there might well be. Let's have a look. So let's have a look at the man of the moment here. MAGA all the way. Hey, I'm not an American, but if I were, I would definitely have voted for Donald Trump. I voted for Brexit and all, so I'm just throwing that in. So, yeah, here's Donald Trump then, and this is his Wikipedia page. And obviously it's locked because there's a lot of people out there who don't like him, and they'll play like when they do all kinds of malicious adjustments. But we can take it as read, I'm sure. They got his birthday right, okay? June the 14th, 1946. Okay, that's when he was born. Is there anything special about this date? Well, yes, there is. And a lot of people have also commented that Donald Trump is a big fan of, like, Israel, okay? His son-in-law, which we're going to get into, Jared Kushner, he's Jewish, married Ivanka. So let's just have a look then at Donald Trump's birthday related to the state of Israel. Here we go. This is when Israel was established, as I just noted, 14th of May, 1948. And it was precisely 700,000 days after the end of the parable of the 4,000 in terms of the 4,000-day movement, okay? So here we are. We've just targeted that day here. Donald Trump was born just prior to the state of Israel being established. How many days exactly? 700 days, exactly. If you go backwards, from 14th of May, 1948, you drop on the 14th of June, 1946, okay? Precisely 700 days. But it gets better. What's going on in the solar system when Donald Trump is born? And the answer? A lunar eclipse. Right on his birthday. Incredible. There it is, right there. Okay. Still the 14th of June, and I've just refined it. We've gone forwards 5 hours to 1900 hours. But look again, look very closely, people. Where is the eclipse? Look at the area of the sky. From the center of the earth where we are, the sun is behind us, there's the moon, and it's right next to the foot of a fucus, right next to, you know, the foot, which is in between here, if we look downwards, sting of the scorpion, and also the serpent's tail. That's that same area. Remember when we targeted the blood moon lunar eclipse, which was 777 days backwards from the day before Jesus is baptized? And I said to you, it's the same area of the sky. Well, right here, we've got something similar. Let me just show you for comparison. This is going back to that 19th of November 20 AD date. This is the lunar eclipse, but we're at the center of the moon. So we see the silhouette of the sun here next to the foot of a fucus, okay? There's the alignment. This Donald Trump's birthday, foot of a fucus, we're the center of the earth here, so we see the blood moon. They're aligned to the same part of the sky, but they've just switched the order of the earth and the moon. But a lunar eclipse is on both days. Very fascinating stuff, okay? Very fascinating stuff. Let's have a look at something else then. So here then, remember I said to you when we finished that parable of the 4,000, we went forward to 4,000 days, and then we had 700,000 exactly left to target the state of Israel being reestablished here. I said to you, but if we just went that 4,000 and we did the 7 times 7, 7 loaves of bread, 7 baskets, I said to you we had a very special alignment occurring 49 days after that 4,000. Well, there's nothing really happening special in the sky here when the State of Israel is established, 14th of May 1948. But if we go forwards 49 days after this, we do get something very special. 2nd of July 1948. Let's have a look at a top-down view of the solar system. Look at this. 2 alignments simultaneously occurring. One is a 4-body alignment, Ceres, Mercury, Venus, and Earth. And the other one is Ceres, Sun, Jupiter. We've seen that before. This is an amazing alignment. And let's have a look at what area of the sky it's targeting. If we look down the line, from the center of Ceres, there is the Sun and Jupiter alignment. And what's this here? The foot of a Fucus. It's another galactic alignment. So this is a very special day here, 49 days after the State of Israel established. And this is how accurate the alignment is from the other 3 planets aligned with Ceres. So this is very interesting. But there's something more as well. Again, we've got the exact same date. I've just refined it slightly, because if you just refine it, we're still on the 2nd of July. If we go forwards, or we just actually go to 5 hours 56 minutes 48 seconds, then from the perspective of the center of the Earth, when we make this angular separation at 90 degrees exactly between the Sun and the Moon, we've got one of these special equidistant relations between the angular separation from the center of the Moon to key stars of Aries, which is the Lamb of God as well. So this is also occurring 49 days after the State of Israel is re-established. So you've got this going off as well. So it's an amazing connection here. It definitely confirms the correct mapping in time of the parable of the feeding of the 4,000, and for me absolutely confirms that Jesus again knew that Israel would be re-established precisely on 14th of May 1948. Just like he knew, as I covered in the previous presentation, that the Second Temple would be destroyed in 70 AD, and he had the precise date for that nailed as well. So let's just go a bit further. Here then, we are on this 49 days after the State of Israel, that special alignment I've just shown you. After that, if we consider this an adjustment, we can also go forward, we can set in motion a 360-day calendar, and if we do that, we drop on the 10th of January 1981. I believe this is 20 days from when Reagan had the assassination attempt. But that's not the target thing I'm looking at here. This date here is very, very interesting. 10th of January 1981, because it's somebody's birthday. Somebody who knows Donald Trump personally. Before we get into that though, let's just have a look at the solar system, top-down view, on this very day. Look at this. We have Saturn, Jupiter, Earth, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Ceres, Earth, and Sun. Very nice. Now, some of these actually reach optimum alignment on the 12th of January, okay, which I'm going to get into shortly. But the 10th is the mathematical precise date here we've got. Whose birthday is the 10th of January 1981? Well, it's this guy here, Jared Kushner. That's his son-in-law, who's married to his daughter Ivanka. Again, his Wikipedia page is locked, but again, I'm assuming they've got his birthday right, 10th of January 1981. So this is the guy here. Let's have a bit go further though. If we do go forwards 2 days, okay, we're on the 12th of January where we have some optimized alignments. So let's have a look at that. This is one of the alignments involving Ceres, the Earth, and the Sun. So you can see here, the green line is the ecliptic, and so the Earth is closer here to being almost dead on the line with the Sun. 2 days earlier, I think it was over here. You know, it was just slightly off. But here, optimized. And there's another interesting optimization. Here, with the center of the Moon, and if we look to the Earth, again, 12th January, this is where the Earth is aligned with Jupiter and Saturn. It's also aligned close to this star here in the Virgo constellation. So again, this alignment wouldn't be present here, involving the Moon, the Earth, Jupiter, and Saturn on the 10th, but it moves into optimization 2 days later, on the 12th. So with this little adjustment, if we find ourselves on the 12th here, we can make a certain mathematical connection. This is what I want to draw your attention to. And this, again, ties into something I said in a previous presentation. Crucifixion Day was the 3rd of April, 33 AD. Precisely 13,636 days later is when the Second Temple was destroyed on the 3rd of August, 70 AD. And again, I went in great detail in the previous presentation on those 2 dates. Okay, so the time separation between them then is, as you can see, 13,636 days. Well, if we're here, 12th of January 1981, 2 days after Jared Kushner is born, and we go forward the same number of days here, 13,636 days, as here, what date do we drop on? The answer is the 14th of May 2018. This is the day when the US Embassy is moved in Israel to Jerusalem, right? They move it through Jerusalem because Tel Aviv is the actual capital of Israel at the moment, right? And they move the embassy to Jerusalem. And it just so happens we have a nice big ceremony like you do. Here we go. This is one of the pictures there. And who just happens to be present at the ceremony? There's Jared Kushner. There's Ivanka. There is Benjamin Netanyahu. Obviously, he's the Prime Minister of Israel, okay? And another shot here. This one's just of Ivanka. I like this picture because we've got the actual plaque right here. She's just stood right next to the plaque, which has the date on it. It says here, Donald J. Trump, President, Mike Pence, Vice President. And it says here, 14th of May, 2018, right at the bottom here, okay? So that's when the actual ceremony took place, okay? And so, again, it's so fascinating that you see a lot of these key events and time cycles being connected to one another from the times of Jesus to events that appear to be happening geopolitically right now. And this leads me on to another interesting character here that I've just mentioned, in fact. Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this guy's a man of destiny as well, okay? Very interesting, this guy. So, obviously he's Jewish, which means he's not a big fan of Jesus, for obvious reasons. But amazingly enough, this guy, his birthday is absolutely tied in to the most important day associated with Jesus, which is Crucifixion Day. Now, this is his Wikipedia page, and again, it's locked because he's obviously not got people like, not everybody likes him. They'll probably just screw him up with all kinds of dodgy references. But we've got Wikipedia, and it's telling us that he was born the 21st of October, 1949. So we can, I think, be safe that's correct if the page is locked. So let's have a look at this. This here is Crucifixion Day, okay? So, how many days forwards do we have to go from Crucifixion Day to drop right on the day when Benjamin Netanyahu is born? And the answer is 700,007 days, which takes us right there, 21st of October 1949. Amazing. But there's something else of interest. The day of disaster. The disaster alignment day, the one I mentioned previously. If we use his birthday as an anchor point and we start counting cycles of 3,200 days and we count 11 such cycles, okay, we actually arrive at that 6th of March 2046 date, okay, right here. And just to show you again, this is the one here, 26th of March, sorry, 6th of March, 2046, this one here, that's the alignment, up and coming, 27 years into the future, and this is how it compares with the 687 alignment, a very close kind of match. And so it's one of those things that almost reinforces it. So I will just say this much, this date, the 6th of March, 2046, it's a very interesting contender for a destructive alignment. It's a very interesting one. On average, we get these kinds of alignments every few centuries, right? We don't get them every several thousand years. We get them every few hundred years, basically. And if we look at the last one we had, which I think was the 1556 one, that comet I mentioned, because we start to get into the realm now of, you know, we're kind of advanced scientifically. We know about the orbits of the planets. We know Ceres was officially discovered in 1801. So if Ceres flares up as a comet now, we kind of know it was Ceres, right? We wouldn't make any mistake about it. So we kind of know when we see these descriptions of comets in the sky in the past, like 1556 or like 1300 AD or like 687 BC, I think we had Ceres flaring up to develop cometary properties, but we know now Ceres is a planet in our solar system, small dwarf planet between Mars and Jupiter. We didn't know that until 1801 when we discovered it with a telescope, you know, because we could finally see it, you know, with a telescope because it's too small to be seen with the naked eye. So we've got to a certain level of technology that I think that we've got to a level where now we would not make any mistake over Ceres if it were flaring up with cometary properties. And I think that the last alignment that we had was the 1556 one. So this is why I say on average, like 500 years later or whatever, we're kind of due for one, statistically speaking. So the best contenders I've shown you, the 2037 one and this 2046 one here. And we have these very elegant mathematical connections, so they're very well worth considering. But I also say this much from a geopolitical standpoint. You keep hearing all this talk about a third temple being created. And I showed you that this pattern here in the mid-4th century BC was tied in to the second temple. So if an announcement were made regarding a third temple being created, it might well be that that announcement would somehow be harmonically tied in to this 6th of March 2046 date, you know, via say maybe 3200 days or 360 days, or even the 819-day calendar system I discussed in the previous presentation. So, you know, they're very interesting alignments. And so, as I said, if they are both speculative, the 2046 and the 2037, they're both speculative, but they're the two best ones to look at as potential contenders for global disaster. And if anybody out there is ever trying to tell you about a date for, you know, the end and all the rest of the end times, you've got to remember this, guys. If somebody ever tells you that, they can't just pick a given year. They've got to be very precise. They've got to pick a day, they've got to pick a month and a year, a very precise date, and there has to be some sort of special conjunction pattern happening on the date in question. Okay, and then they'd have to put forward a case that it has many elements of past disasters, like, say, maybe the direction of the alignment is linked to the Pleiades, for example, something like that. They'd have to put that forward, and you would also expect there to be some sort of elegant mathematical connection tied into these special calendar cycles used by the ancients. You know, you'd have to see that as well. So if anybody's ever telling you they think that they know the day of disaster, they've got to at least present a case involving all of that, which is exactly what I have done right here, at least with respect to these two dates here. There are a few others I know about, but and even though they're closer at hand, they're not as good as these. These two I've shown you are the best contenders, even though they're speculative. You know, they're speculative. But anyway, that actually is the end of the presentation here. So do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but that was fascinating stuff. And I know you probably have plenty more that you could present to us. So, you know, we'll definitely have to have you back on. Keith, once again, give everybody your website, and thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, yeah, my website is occultphysics.com. In fact, I'll stop the screen share here, if you can see me, yeah? Yeah, my website is occultphysics.com, and that's the same as my book title here, Occult Physics. So if you're going to post a link in the description box, that's where you can find my research. And I've got a few essays on my website regarding some of the alignment patterns of destruction as well. So people, if you're interested in looking at those articles, and also obviously buy my book, that'd help. I've got bills to pay. That'd be great as well. So it's been good to be here.
Very good. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time, and we will have you back on soon.